BBC Radio Northampton.
Right, to a really unusual story now, something I wanted to share with you on the show. We're going to meet someone quite unusual. He's called Seth Jackson. He's a specialist in creating robots that respond to the power of our minds. And he's most famous for a robot called Homer. Homer is a robot that will pour you a beer, but only if you concentrate very hard on the beer. The more you focus, the better the beer will pour. It sounds a bit odd or even silly, but it's a fascinating example of how the power of our brainwaves can be used to power robots. And when you think about it, the possibilities could be endless. He's got a company called Arcade Strange, and their mission is to explore these possibilities. So I'm so pleased I got a chance to speak to Seth for today's show, and he told me where the idea came from.
It was born back in 2016. I was sitting with a roboticist and a neuroscientist discussing the future of creative technology, and we were having a beer at the time. And as that kind of magic that happens when you start talking to people that have different disciplines and different knowledge around you, as that started to kind of gather momentum, we decided we'd try and create the world's first mind-controlled beer-pouring robot. I
love it. I mean, all the best ideas happen when you're having a pint and having a freewheeling conversation. So a mind-controlled beer-pouring robot, which uses technology, I'm going to get this wrong, but I think it's electrocephalogram technology. Is that right?
It is right. It's a very hard word to say, which is why we call it EEG, which makes it easier.
Right. And this is the technology that relates to, is it identifying which parts of the brain fire and gathering the energy, the electricity that the brain creates, and then harnessing that in some way?
Yeah, it's taking the electric impulses from your brain and translating them into hopefully something usable. So this technology is used for a raft of amazing things, from working with people with ADHD to clinical trials, all sorts of exciting things. However, we thought, wouldn't it be quite fun just to use that to pour a beer? So the headsets we use can measure all sorts of different brainwaves and all sorts of complicated things. However, what we're measuring is just mental focus. So we don't know what you're focusing on. We just know how focused you are. No room for frothy thoughts, just direct, single channel thoughts.
Interesting. So I don't have to be thinking about wanting a beer. I just need to be focused on something. And I've seen a picture of you using this pump, and I'll get you to describe it for everyone, because it looks like a normal, very shiny beer pump, but then you can see it's connected to your head via. It's the kind of thing you see in Star Trek. If you describe it for anyone that's not seen it.
Yeah, so if you imagine a beer tap like you might see in your local pub or your bar, but the tap and the glass are moved by, I guess, an invisible hand. So they just magically move on their own. But that invisible hand is actually your brain. So you're wearing this kind of metal strip that goes across your head and around your ear and rests on your forehead. And that is measuring your EEG brainwaves. And when your level of focus will determine the angle of the glass and the pour of the tap. So if you're really focused, you will pour the perfect pint. If you are distracted or your brain can't focus in that way, then there'll be lots of froth everywhere and it will pour beer all over my lovely robot.
Genius. I mean, it's so clever. It's the kind of science that, of course it's silly, pouring a pint, but it's the kind of science that years ago, decades ago, if you'd explained to someone we could control things with our minds, I mean, this was what people were dreaming about, I guess, in the 60s with sci-fi.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked in technology and marketing all my life, and a lot of technology is used for really important things to make utility, to drive science forward. But I think there is a space in all of this moving forward, in AI, in mind control, for just tech for joy. So to use technology to play with and to teach people coming into these kind of industries that they can be anything. They can mix up, artistic leanings with scientific leanings, and you can bring them together into something that just makes people happy.
So when you've let people have a go on this, have you been surprised by the range of abilities, I guess? How some people are able to really focus their minds and some people really struggle?
It's very interesting, actually, because, like I said, it doesn't know what you're focusing on. So a really mathematically minded person might do the Fibonacci sequence backwards in their head, and that would get them a really high score. A creative person or a more creative person might really need the visual inputs that the robot itself gives you to show how well you're doing. You see a vast range of different people using it in different ways. So the skill sets definitely vary massively. It shows the different kinds of focus that people have, and that is really interesting. And each person that uses the robot, you get to talk to and hear their story. And, here perhaps you're trying to teach them how to use a muscle for the first time. When you actually move an object with your brain for the first time, it is like using some kind of tiny muscle you've never used before. It's really very exciting.
Yeah, it is. That's why I wanted to speak to you. And what do you focus on when you're trying to pour the perfect pint? What have you found personally most focuses your mind?
I'll let you into a secret. The rest of my team are really very, very good at this, like almost perfect. I am surprisingly terrible at it because I'm always thinking of the next thing, or what would make the robot better, or something else. So yes, I'm rather bad at running my own robot.
Right. Well, it's a good job that for now we won't have to rely on you for pints of beer. We can still have the traditionally hand poured pints. You've mentioned the other applications of this, and I think I recall seeing a documentary about patients with paralysis who were able to move things by thinking via, I guess, very similar technology. It seems like the possibilities are endless, not just in the medical space, but as you said, in the realm of fun and creativity and entertainment. What an exciting area of science that you found yourself in.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's loads and loads of applications for it. Despite what was reported in the press, I'm neither a neuroscientist or a robotics expert, but I am an inventor and an entrepreneur, and I do see all sorts of amazing ways you could use this. I mean, if you give a child the feeling that they're a Jedi, if they can move with either their mind or with gesture control, like large objects from a distance, this is amazing potential to deliver joy and wonder and excitement and inspire people.
Seth Jackson there talking about this pump, a beer pump controlled by your mind. And he's right, if you gave a child the ability to move something with their brain, what an incredible thing that is. I mean, let's speak to a child. Reggie, if we could give you the power with Seth Jackson's, the technology that he's marketing, if you could be given the power to move something with your brain without having to lift a finger, what would you do to help humanity?
Probably just turn on the TV quicker,